would be less bouncy.
So COR, for everybody that wants to know, it's the coefficient of restitution, or the relationship of the incoming speed to the outgoing speed. So the incoming speed from the pitcher to the outgoing speed from the hitter, how hard that player hits the ball. So in other words, as you and I are reading these gory details, this new ball will be less bouncy, as you said. And it's interesting that the Diamondbacks are one of 5 teams that already have their baseballs in humidors. The Diamondbacks, Mariners, Mets, Red Sox, and Rockies already have their balls in humidors, and there's supposed to be at least 5 more teams installing humidors, right, Joe?
Yeah. With the humidors, I'm not against, because I think that helps everyone. And, the humidity, we know the temperatures, how that can affect the ball, how that can affect the pitcher, even the effect of when the ball hits the bat. That I am for. The changing of the ball, I am not so much.
Are they just concerned about the fluctuation rates of home runs during the season? So 2020, they, by measurements, teams hit 1.28 home runs per team per game. The year before, they hit 1.39. That was the all-time record. The year before that, 1.15. So is Major League Baseball concerned about the way the rates of home runs going out of the ballparks? Is that why they're trying to deaden these balls?
Yeah, I think because if you look at the numbers, they're wanting to go back to levels of what just over 1, 1.15, 1.6.
Yes. Yeah, 1.6 was in 2016. Yeah.
And it's about 0.20 practically that it has increased. Yes, they're hitting more home runs, but also it's not only the ball. It's also that you have the players who are more competitive. They're stronger. The pitchers are not what they used to be either, Ed. Think about it. Over the years, a lot of factors in place. It doesn't all have to do with the baseball.
No, it doesn't. And also the fact that at least last season, they're starting to implement these teams are now starting to put more and more pitchers in throughout the course of a game. So you're seeing 6, 7, 8 pitchers in a game. So every pitcher is clearly different. Their pitching styles are different. That lends different results to different batters. Gone are the days when you've got starting pitchers going 7, 8, 9 innings, complete games anymore, because teams are concerned about Tommy John injuries to their starting pitchers or their middle relief or their closers. It's so many different factors that goes beyond, as you said, Joe, the weight and the size of a baseball.
Yeah, there's so many factors in play, and I'm just going over this as you're saying that as well. And there's also saying that there's a slight difference in the seams on the baseball. The baseball has an effect on offense. MLB, who owns Rawlings, which manufactures its baseballs, every baseball is handmade. There's a lot in here that's, I guess, a little convoluted. Is that the right word?
It is. I don't know how you can stay consistent in a sport that fluctuates so much in a year where we're dealing with this COVID-19 situation. And like go ahead, Joe, I'm sorry.
Sorry. Yes, that. And also in baseball, when is there consistency?
There's never been consistency in any sport.
Well, yeah, but I'm just, saying from one year to the next, just consistency with whether that's the team, the organization, your players, your pitchers, it just in, overall aspects of it, your everything. There's no consistency there.
No, there never is. There's so many different factors. There's so many different things that go into making up a baseball team, and it'll never be consistent. There's so many moving parts within an organization that it can't be consistent. It's impossible.
Yeah. I am for the humidors. So I think that ballparks or the MLB should add those to each of the ballparks. There are a handful of those of stadiums that have humidors. So let's go ahead and add those installations. So I think that can also be a factor, and that can also maybe, if they're wanting, MLB's wanting to create some consistency, I think that's one of the things where they can add consistency to.
If they add these 5 teams, whoever they are, that'll put them up to 10 teams that will have humidors.
Mm-hmm.
I think Major League Baseball has more to worry about and deal with than the size and the weight of a baseball, and trying to make things consistent with the way baseballs are made and how they weigh and how they're dealt with and how home runs may or may not be hit. There's so many more important things that are on the table than this.
Definitely. If that's one of the things that they're wanting to, this is one of the things they're wanting to do. Essentially, well, baseball's wanting to get the games to come to a conclusion sooner rather than later, and not have all these extended games with all these additional innings. So changing the baseball and changing that offense and reducing the rate of the home runs, because it's also going to affect not only the home runs, but it's also going to affect the ball when you hit it and where it's going to go, where it's going to land, etc. Do you think that's also going to have a play in, effect in team scores?
I think it could. It will definitely have an effect on the scores, and it'll have I wonder how much of an effect it will have on the pitchers themselves. Will the balls feel different to them coming out, and how much of an adjustment will pitchers have to make to these brand new baseballs?
Supposedly, there's not going to be much of an adjustment that players or pitchers have to adjust to, from the report that I read. But still, there's going to be change in it. So the weight of it is going to change. The composition of it is going to change. The velocity of it is going to change. All of that is going to be a factor in how, the ball is going to be put in play. Therefore, it's going to affect runs, and it's going to affect the runs coming in. If it's not a home run, but it's going to affect other things. Just trying to thinking out loud here.
How much will it really affect a batter? Because they don't directly touch the ball. The only thing that directly touches the ball is the bat. So will it feel different to the baseball players when they hit the ball? Will it feel different coming off the bat to them? I don't think it will. I don't know. It's such a bang, bang play, Joe, from the time the pitcher throws the ball and that batter decides he wants to hit the ball. It's a quick moving thing from a human standpoint. That bang, bang play, it's like, okay, I hit the ball. I either run because it's a single. I'm going for a single, double, triple, or I hit a home run and I can actually admire it. And I'm like, I can trot around the bases.
Yeah, I guess we won't know until these changes are, in effect. And how we see, the effect of it once these changes are made. Until then, we'll see, okay, is it this much of a change? If anything, it's going to affect home runs or anything else, or any of these other factors that are involved.
And say it doesn't affect it at all. Say they go back to 2019 where MLB hit almost 7,000 home runs. Say they hit almost 7,000 home runs this year based off this experiment, and it didn't work. Now what do? Do you go back to the way it used to be, or you just continue with these balls? And you're like, okay, it is what it is. Or do they try to adjust the balls even more to try to make it even more consistent as you continue to tinker with the game of baseball?
I think, like you said earlier, MLB has a lot of other things that they can probably worry about, in other words, just to come out and say it, than worrying about the baseball, the composition of it, trying to limit the home runs or the rate of the home runs coming. Worry about other things that are more important, at least for this season. That's my opinion. But if it doesn't work out, just leave it as is. I don't think there's a reason at all to change the baseballs whatsoever.
No, it's not. Worry about, like we said last week, worry about your product. You need to worry about making baseball great again. Make it a relevant sport as it is lagging behind the NFL, the NBA, college football, college basketball, the NHL. You need to make this sport exciting again for people to actually want to watch the game. And the playoffs last year proved a point that it can be good. You've got a good product out there. You've got a lot of good young players, but you have to market them properly. You've got to actually put a good product. You've got to get through spring training. You've got to get that part done. You've got to get through 162 games, and worrying about the size and the weight, the heaviness of a baseball and consistency on that part. That's not even close to where I would put my resources and I would really focus on if I was Rob Manfred in Major League Baseball. You've got a lot more irons in the oven, those little iron pokers in the oven that you've got to take out and fix. If you want to hammer that into a sword, you've got to make those swords first before you work on this sword, which is these baseballs.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Could not agree more. But talking about college baseball, we have that there will be some changes for 2021 season for NCAA baseball. So here I'm going to go ahead and read this off of what the changes are going to be for the season. These are going to be the COVID rules that are in place for college baseball. One, the NCAA will allow MLB extra inning rule where the player will start an inning in second base. A decision can be made by each conference, or the coaches can mutually agree to do it before the game starts. Number 2, pitchers can have a damp rag on their back pocket to prevent them from licking their fingers during the game. 3, in a worst case scenario, games can be started and completed with only one umpire. And number 4, coaches cannot cross the foul line or enter the dirt around home plate to question a call. This includes pre-game meetings. What are your thoughts on this?
I like all of those. I like all those rules changes that they're trying to implement, and it's all in the efforts of safety, of looking out for the players, for looking out for these young men and these young women. I'm sure it'll probably move to NCAA softball for the NCAA teams as well, like Major League Baseball, like its bigger brother. You're trying to put out a good product. You're trying to get through an entire season. You're trying to keep all the players and the coaches and all the staff members on all of these baseball teams healthy, keep their families healthy. And the way to do that is by implementing these rules and keeping these players and these coaches accountable for their actions. And if they're not accountable for their actions, then they have to pay the consequences.
True. 2 questions that I ponder on when this came out, because this came out just a couple of days ago. I'm sure there's going to be some updates made throughout, some changes and whatnot. But the 2 things that I've been pondering are, will these rules be here to stay? Because I think these are very, very beneficial to NCAA in baseball. These are just helps the kids a lot. Number 2, is there any rule in here that you see or as a surprise that hasn't already been in play and that they're just doing now, and kind of why are you just doing this now?
I like the rules, and I think they will be here to stay at least until we get a handle on the COVID situation. That'll be a long time before we can actually eradicate this devil that's running rampant throughout the entire world. Until we can get this under control, these will have to be the rules that they'll have in place. If they want to have successful seasons, if they want their baseball teams and their football teams in any sport, whether it's professional, college, high school, Pee Wee League, whatever sport it is, you have to have rules in place in order to look out for the safety of the players, whether it's a little kid or a professional athlete or a grown man or a grown woman playing a sport. You have to have rules in place in order for them to stay safe, and the coaches and the assistant coaches and everybody else in the organization to stay safe. Otherwise, there's hundreds of thousands of people in all these organizations combined, and everybody's just doing their own thing because there are no rules. Rules are put in place to keep everybody in line and just keep along a narrow path for a reason, and that narrow path is safety.
Yes, that's the key word, safety. There's one thing in here from the rules that the worst case scenario game can be started and completed with only one umpire. Do you think that one umpire is sufficient to oversee and make calls on the game with so much that's involved in baseball?
What does that say? So they're going to not have, like a first base umpire or a third base umpire or a second base umpire. So they're just going to have one umpire behind the plate, making rules on everything, making decisions?
Well, whether that's behind the plate or wherever that would be, in the worst case scenario, they would have that one umpire can start and complete the game.
I don't know, because if they've got a umpire behind the plate, and that's where I would think they'd have an umpire, because somebody's got to call balls and strikes. So if you've got only one umpire, he has to be behind home plate to make all those calls. You can't have a guy on down the first baseline or the third baseline making balls and strikes calls. And so how will that umpire be able to see a play all the way down the left baseline or the right baseline if there's a ball that's hit into the corner or into the alleys, and he can't make a proper play on a call on that play because he can't see it properly, because he's not in the right position to see that and make a decision on that. That's not good. That's not going to work.
Yeah, that's exactly the question that I have. Just exactly for everything that you just mentioned. That's why I'm questioning that. I think that the minimum should be 2 for everything that you just said, because there's going to be things that, home plate umpire is ideal where that one umpire would be if minimum. You have to be calling those balls. But what about a play that's elsewhere outside on the outfield or, along the first base line or third base line, etc.?
Is there thinking possibly that they would go to maybe an instant replay on plays like that an umpire can't make a ruling on?
we still don't know all the details.